Alright, see you, man. How good was that? Been on the trail for maybe 5 minutes and straight away a koala sitting right in the middle. And he was super friendly too. So I got a few quick photos and video. Pretty good way to start the morning. As you can see, or might have guessed, we're back out in the Otways today. And we're heading out to one of my favourite waterfalls. It's called Lower Kalimna Falls. I'm really trying to make the most of winter this year. Last year I didn't do much waterfall photography at all. And it was something that going into summer last year I really regretted and wished I did more of. So I'm pretty excited that this year I'm ticking off some waterfalls off the list, getting some cool waterfall images. Yeah, enjoying the cold weather and the rain, trying to make the most of it. That koala was so friendly. I saw it from about 20 metres up the trail and I was like, okay, I probably have to stand back here because it will run off as soon as it sees me. But I ended up getting about within a metre of it before he started to get a bit grumpy, so I let him continue about his day. But yeah, what a cool way to kick off the morning, eh? Okay, so I've come over to the other side out of the cave, right opposite where the falls are actually coming through. And I'm going to get right down to the base of the water here and see if I can use this really nice fallen mossy log and the smaller one that's in front of it as some foreground interest. So I'm just going to switch on the camera and see if there's a way I can frame this up. It is super slick down here. But I think even something like this, where with a slower shutter, it should look quite nice and quite sort of serene and peaceful in theory. I'm just going to frame up something like this. Now, I'm going to be holding my camera, or at least a tripod, for most of the time I'm here, because the mud at my feet is super slippy. And if I'm having trouble gripping on, my tripod will be as well. It's just all about experimenting when you're doing slower shutter speeds. There's no right or wrong way to do it, or right shutter to be on. It's all about the way you want to show the scene. That could be super slow and get all the movement happening and really blur out the water. Could be pretty fast and capture the energy and the power in the water. You can do whatever you want. For me, what I'm looking for right now though, is a decent amount of blur in the water, and then where all these bubbles are, obviously right now they look like they're pretty still, but over a decent period of time they are moving and creating these lines, ripples and textures in the water. So I just want to sort of get a sweet spot and capture all that without anything being too blurred, but not being too short as well. And I'm just going to keep playing with these a bit more. But I'll throw the shot up and tell you guys a bit more about why I chose the one I went with. Let's have a look. Well, here it is, the first photo of the day. I ended up taking about 20 shots of this same composition, just making slight changes to my shutter speed and settings with each one. I've ended up picking this one as my favourite because I love the highlights we're getting in the foreground from the moving bubbles in the water. I find those highlights really work well to add some contrast to the scene and complement the bright white highlights we're getting in the waterfall itself. Settings wise, I've shot this one at a 10-second shutter speed with an aperture of f8. So just now in that spot, I spent probably close to half an hour just going through and trying different settings, different apertures, different shutter speeds, balancing those with each other to try to find a way of showing the scene that I was happy with, and I think I did. To me, that's such an important thing about waterfall photography, seascape photography, anything with like a moving subject. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just about experimenting and finding the way that you personally want to show the scene. I know some people in this space like to be of the mindset that there's right settings and wrong settings and you have to do things this way for it to be the perfect photo. But I think all that's just kind of bullshit, to be honest. Have a play, try your settings out, learn your camera, experiment, get things wrong, break rules, and just show a scene in the way that you are experiencing it as your unique self, you know? That sounds a bit pretentious, but I don't know. That's something that kind of irks me sometimes, is that people will teach things in a way where creatively there's right and wrong, where I don't think that's the case, especially in landscape photography. So I spent about half an hour just then going through those. I'm happy with the final shot. I love the way it looks and I love the way it turned out. My one problem with it is that I've seen that photo before lots of times with other people who have shot here. So I think I'm going to get one more shot here before I head back on the trail and try to get something that is a bit different and unique. Which might be difficult because it's a pretty popular spot for landscape photographers around here. But I'm going to have a go, so we'll see what we can do. Alright, so I found a composition down around the corner of the waterfall where the stream's actually being pushed out just down to my right back here. And I've framed it up where I've got a fern sitting right in the bottom lower third, the fern overhead sort of framing the waterfall with one blade on each side, and then the bubbles of the air in the water are running right through the bottom right of my third. And with a lower shutter speed I should be able to capture the lines that they create as they move through and use those, the lines in the ferns and the fern in the bottom, to really sort of create a sense of direction going up to the top of the shot. So I've got to use a pretty slow shutter speed on this one to get those lines in the bubbles. So I'm at 20 seconds and around the f16 mark, and then I'm playing around with my ISO a bit. So I'm just going to wait for a good portion of bubbles to roll through. That way I can capture them right at the right moment. I'm going to keep messing around my settings a bit more. Once I'm happy with it, I'll throw it up on the screen for you guys to see. So I pictured this one having to need a pretty slow shutter speed in order to get the shot I had in mind. But I've ended up picking out a shot with a 2-second shutter at f13. I definitely don't think that this is as strong a composition as the previous one, and there's definitely a few changes I could have made in camera to make the composition a bit stronger. Mainly, I wish I'd moved my tripod down and to the right slightly, just so that fern in the top left corner wasn't fully poking over the stream of the waterfall. And I think also by getting lower and a bit further to the right, the lines created by those bubbles would have popped out a bit more and really sort of stuck out as the main foreground of the image. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this photo, but don't think it's going in a portfolio anytime soon. So I've made it back down to these little cascades that we started the day at. And I've come right down to the base of the stream where everything's just flowing through. And there's definitely a shot to be had here, so I'm going to get a photo here and I think wrap up the day. I've spotted a composition actually leading downstream, so I think I'm going to have to go with that first. So just here leading downstream, whoa, as I slip, just here leading downstream, there's a really cool bit of cascading water happening. And normally I'm not my brain doesn't work in shooting up or shooting downstream with shots like this. I usually tend to look upstream and capture the water that way. But for whatever reason, this really jumped out at me as I slid my way down here. The water's moving nice and fast, so that should give me a lot of options in terms of finding some lines, some shapes, some textures happening in that water. Then what I also really want to do is show this sort of ambient surrounding area here with these gloomy trees and a bit of light popping through up in the sky. Whoa. Hopefully that got on camera. Alright, so what I'm doing here is really using the running water of the stream as my main focal point of this scene, where the highlights in these white rapids are really popping against the dark, gloomy green surrounding. So right at the bottom of my frame, I've got this stream happening right to this little sleek section of rocks here. And there's some little yellow leaves that are right clinging to the rocks that are popping through and giving me some colour right there. And then as we move forward, we've got more rapids happening and then a big boulder right in the middle of the shot. But the lines that these rapids are making with a slower shutter speed of about, what am I at? I think about, so we're doing about 6 seconds, and that's really all it needs to show those textures and colours in the water. And really use those to create a sense of movement and really draw your eye through the image. So I'm only using my polarizer right now, and that's about all I need. I don't think I need to go any darker or any slower with my shutter to get the shot I want. With my polarizer, I'm just spinning that to take off any ugly glare from the surface of these rocks. They can be a bit sort of glary and messy looking. So I'm using that to get rid of those. And what the polarizer also does is really makes those dark greens pop and gives them a lot of vibrance and saturation, which looks just awesome. It's a very sort of almost ethereal scene, I'd say, where there's a fallen log right down in the back of the shot, and the river just sort of meanders out to who knows where. I think it's pretty cool. So, gonna mess around with those settings, and I'll show you guys this photo. It's not often for me that I end a trip with the last photo I take being my favourite one, but I think here that might be the case. While it is such a simple scene, there's just something about it that I find super engaging and peaceful. I really like the way the patterns in the water lead us through the scene and up into the dreamy forest, with some golden light just slightly glowing in the background. If you're interested in the settings for this one, I've used a 5-second shutter speed with an aperture of f13. After I edited in Lightroom, I also brought this file into Photoshop and added something called the Autumn effect, which gives that really sort of glowy, dreamy, ethereal look, especially in the top portion of the scene. If you'd like to see how I edited this photo, or any of the other ones from this video, let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to do a video on my editing process. Alright everybody, well, all wrapped up, that little cascade. Probably my favourite photo of the day, I reckon, just based on looking at the back of the LCD. So, pretty good way to finish off the day with a shot like that. I'm back on the trail and almost at the end of it, so I'm about to jump in the car and head home. I've ended up being out here for about, I think close to 4, maybe 5 hours today. It's flown by though. What's happened? We met that koala on the way in, got the waterfall and finished off there obviously. So, pretty good day I'd say overall. As always, huge thanks for sticking around this long if you did. I really appreciate it, as well as all the support on the channel. Stay tuned for the next one. Shouldn't be too far away. I think we might get out to a beach or something like that. For the next one, change up a bit. Been doing a lot of waterfall stuff lately, so might try something different next time around. But until then, take it easy and I'll see you soon.